chapter 8, African civilizations and the spread of Islam. And what we will be doing is talking about African societies, the diversity and similarity, kingdoms of the grasslands, the Swahili coast of East Africa, and people of the forest and the plains. African societies, diversity and similarities. You're going to have political variations and religious variations. What you're going to have is a lot of areas will have kinships with their political systems. They'll have monarchies. They'll have small empires. Most of this is going to come about later with Islam because you're originally going to have stateless societies. You're just going to have small little areas. This area of Africa is very broken up, very fragmented. East Africa has city-states. They all have different types of governments. West Africa, you'll have Mali. You'll have Ghana, Mali, Songhai. So a lot of different areas with different types of political systems, some involving divinity, others not so much. Different religions, you're going to have Judaism, we've already talked about that. Christianity, we've talked about it, it's mentioned again in this chapter. You're also going to see the expansion of Islam, which we've already talked about earlier in chapter 6. We're going to see more of that in Africa. And you also have to remember that these areas also had their polytheistic religions and their pagan gods that they believed in prior to the entrance of some of these other religions. Common elements in African societies, you have Bantu migration, which is one language base. This is going to occur kind of where the Horn of Africa begins. The Bantu are going to spread from their east and south, covering the majority of the continent from that point downward. And so having that one language base really helps out with the communication. Even though you have different dialects and different languages, it's still going to aid in trading and in traveling. Animism, polytheism, mentioned that just earlier. We've talked about that for several chapters now. The arrival of Islam in North Africa, that's where your Berbers are going to be. They'll be converting a lot of areas in the Mediterranean. We talked about their entrance in chapter 6. Making it all the way up to Spain by the early 700s. Sorry for pronunciation, the Almoravids and the Almohades. These are your Berber groups that are going to be reformist, taking on the jihad and the holy wars, trying to purify these areas and the converts of Islam. Your Christian kingdoms are going to isolate themselves. This will be the area, you'll have your Egyptian Christians, Axum, Kush, Nubia, eventually your Ethiopian kingdom with King Lalibela. And what happens is they get isolated for two reasons. One, the Muslims come in. They are accepting with the trade and the merchants, but there are some attempts to take over these regions. The Catholics come down to aid them, and they're successful in that, but the Ethiopian Christians are not wanting to convert to Catholicism, and so therefore they kind of end up leaving, and we'll read more about Catholicism in the Orthodox Church later in chapter 9, but that's another reason for them being isolated, so they're kind of cut off from the Christian community, and then you have Islam surrounding them in kind of the neighbor areas that are dealing with their polytheistic religions. Your areas of expansion north of Islam is in North Africa and along the eastern coast of Africa. You don't get a lot in the interior and southern part of Africa. Kingdoms of the grasslands, caravans across the Sahara. You remember the trade routes from this chapter. Also in your map from chapter 7, you also had to draw all those northern trade routes, and we'll see that in a slide in a few minutes. The Sahel will be your transfer point. These are the grasslands. And this is where your trade from the north and from the interior are going to meet as a transfer point. The Sudanic states, that will be Ghana, Mali, and Songhai in that order. Their rulers will be sacred. Islam will reach this region in about the 900s, and it's going to help support their state, their organization, their structure. It also brings a written language in Arabic, which Africa was lacking in. Everything prior to that was by oral traditions and stories. The Empire of Mali will be formed by Sundiata, the Lion Prince. These will be people that broke off from the Ghana region, and they will develop agriculture. That will be the major cultural, societal aspect of Africa, even though they'll be involved with trade. It'll also be a major part of economics. Gold will be heavy in this area. Your next ruler will be Mansa Musa, and he's going to expand the state. This is an image of him right here with the scepter and the gold nugget. It's the image that is used for the beginning of this chapter. Your tan area will be Ghana. Your blue outline that you see here in your notes will be Mali, and then the red will be Songhai, and then your orange areas are Islamic centers that were established with the decline of the Songhai. Mansa Musa is going to make his pilgrimage to Mecca. He's going to bring back Ishaq al-Sahali. Again, sorry for pronunciation. He is going to be a poet and an architect. This is when you're going to get some of the architecture from the Muslim world converting with that of Africa, which was using the beaten clay architecture. So you'll get a combination there as well. I would look at that image. It was on the AP exam a couple years ago. So was one of the maps from this chapter. So it's always good to make sure you're looking at the captions underneath the maps and underneath the images as well. City dwellers and villagers, Janneh and Timbuktu will be your major commercial centers of trade in this region along the Niger River here. The Jula will be the name for the merchants. A lot of them will convert to Islam or are foreigners that are Islamic in this region and taking advantage of the gold trade. Again, most of them will be farmers though, and so 80% of your society is still dealing with agriculture. The Songhai kingdom was the middle Niger Valley area. That was the third in these grassland empires. They will break off from Mali around 700, so kind of early. They're in an independent little area. Most of the upper class will convert to Islam at about 1010. Their capital will be Gao. Sorry for pronunciation. Your major ruler that pretty much forms the Songhai empire will be Sunni Ali, and he expands the territory. They will eventually be defeated by Muslims from Morocco with gunpowder, so having the firearms. That will occur in 1591. Your Hausa and Kano states, which I pointed out on the map earlier, are areas of Muslim centers that are going to form with the downfall of that. Political and social life in the Sudanic states, fusion of Muslim and indigenous traditions. You're going to see a lot of the culture and traditions and ceremonies in Africa continue on. Even though Islam, women don't wear veils, it talks about a traveler seeing kids running around naked. Women aren't wearing any kind of covering even over their heads. Some of them are continuing their jobs and positions. So women still keep a lot of their rights. A lot of these clans and groups and language-based areas keep a lot of their traditions and ceremonies that they've had for centuries. The Swahili coast of East Africa, your major trading ports, these are going to be city-states along it. Even though you have the common Swahili language group in this area, and even though they are connected to each other, kind of very similar to Greek with these city-states, and they become major trading areas. Again, the blending cultures of Bantu, Islamic, and Swahili, you're only having a lot of conversions to Islam in your cities, and again, those are going to be merchants and upper class. You're not going to get so much into the interior where a lot of peasants are farming. Your major trade routes in North Africa, you're going to have your routes across to the east and then the routes down along the east coast area. This map, again, one of the things that was on an AP exam a couple of years ago with the winds and the monsoon seasons, which area was best to travel. So again, it's always good to look at your maps. Here is your trade routes, your major trade routes during the world at this time. The main thing you need to get out of Yoruba, it was small city-states and this Nigerian forest area with Nok is the fact that they were well developed in their iron tools. They had divine kings. They had a major holy center, and they were really extravagant for them in their art and architecture. This is when you're going to get your terracotta masks. Some of them going very realistic to what the people look like, some of them a little abstract with involving some of the spiritual aspects of the holy cities involved. The Bantu will get close to the Cape Horn. You'll get the Katanga area and this will be of the Luba peoples, and they will have a divine kinship. So again, having royalty, dealing with God has appointed these people, and you'll have a hereditary bureaucracy. So they do involve some aspect of government here. It is hereditary, so it's being passed down to the male or brother within that family. The Congo region will be one of your larger areas during this time period. They'll even have gender roles for women farming, running the household, men clearing the forest, hunting and trading. They will have a capital center. They will divide their area up into 8 federations or provinces that they're controlling over. And so it was actually fairly large and oppressive for that time period in Africa. The Shona language group, that is down in the Great Zimbabwe area, so southeast of the Congo, just south of the Swahili area, getting closer to South Africa. And the main thing you need to remember about them is the major gold trading. And again, I've included 3 maps. Those are also in your power notes as well to aid you in understanding the Africa region. And that concludes chapter 8.